everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Maniacs. This episode is entitled By Your Blessing, B-U-Y, not B-Y. And we're going to cover several situations where giving and money given to the church is looked at as being a requirement for not only maybe your job in general, but a requirement for you to receive the Lord's blessings. And so these will be the experiences that I've personally had when I was the HR director at World Harvest for almost 4 years. So wanted to start the episode with actually just talking a little bit about some of the first things that I experienced when it came directly related to money and the staff members that were not only staff members at the church, but they also attended church at World Harvest. So when I started there in February of 2019, it was right before Resurrection Seed season, which is typically the week or two before Easter, which we will definitely discuss that. But it was some meetings that I had heard about that were happening leading up to Res Seed time. And these meetings were held pretty secretly. Usually if you're having meetings with staff members, you would include a member of the HR team, which I was the only HR person for almost 300 staff members. So you can imagine how busy I was, but also the fact that you're having conversations like this with people without an advocate or somebody that's there that the staff members trust to at least let them know what their rights are or are not. So these meetings were had typically with one of the elders of the church and the chief administrative officer. So they did not typically include Pastor Parsley himself or his daughter. But the meetings were had with staff members, and what would happen is their tithing and offering reports would be pulled, and then these meetings would be had to say, are you giving your 10%? Are you giving 10% on your gross or on your net? Are you giving offering? Because not only do you work here, but you are, being spiritually fed here. And so you need to make sure that you are giving what is entitled to God and to the church. So people that would be in these meetings, first of all, when they came and told me about them, it was shocking to me that this was happening because I've always felt like giving, whether it's in church or who, you choose to give to, whether it's, certain charities or the things that, you're passionate about and you want to give your best to, that's personal, and that's really not anybody else's business. But especially when you're talking about giving to God, that's a personal thing to me specifically, because I don't need to, be waving a white flag to say, hey, look at me, look how much money I give, look at this, look at that. And so I just felt like that was odd in general, that these meetings would be had. But again, making people feel like when they thought that they were doing the right thing and they were giving their tithing and offering, that they were doing it because that was something that they wanted to do. They were trying to be, a cheerful giver, if you will, and not criticized privately and made to feel like they're not doing enough for the kingdom and enough to support the church and their pastor. So after 2019, so now we go into 2020, and COVID hits, and churches, were hit particularly hard during that time because people were hit hard, and so people could not give, I don't believe, the way that they had always given, and so the giving had gone down, especially because you couldn't really have church anymore. So it was then impressed upon even further of the staff that they needed to make sure that if they wanted to continue to be blessed, then they needed to make sure that they were giving, tithing and offering and giving more than they'd ever given before if they could. But it was, a tactic, again, to make people feel like maybe they weren't giving as much as they should be because they weren't being blessed. And so, again, I found out that these meetings were being had. And so I questioned it. I said, hey, I questioned it to my boss. Hey, why are you continuing to have these meetings and not at least tell me about them, let alone not having me in there? Because people are feeling intimidated. They are feeling manipulated. They are feeling like even if they are good with God and what they're doing, that it's still not acceptable and okay with the people that are signing their paychecks. And so then they're coming to me and asking, what can I do? What are my options? And a lot of times the option was quit having your tithes taken directly out of your paycheck. Go ahead and let's cancel that. And then you can give your tithes and offerings in cash or on your own, so that people are not all up in your business about what you are and aren't doing. Again, because this is very personal, and this is something that if you're not doing the right thing, then I would think that, the Lord would convict you of that rather than being made to feel like you're not doing what's right in God's eyes because everybody can see how much money that you make that are making these decisions to have these meetings, and then saying, well, you're not giving enough money. So that was one of my first experiences, especially with the staff, where I was very perplexed about why it was happening. But then in turn, I said, well, do you want my tithing report from my church? Since I don't go to church here, I just work here. Do you want my tithing report? Because if it's truly about being biblical and doing the right thing in God's eyes with your tithes and offerings, then why wouldn't you ask for mine as well? And I was told, no, we don't need yours. And so I think that speaks a little bit to how these meetings would go, and they would make people feel that they were not being blessed because they were not doing the right thing. So then we kind of move on from there, but kind of in the same light when we talk about the staff specifically, is that mostly everyone that works there, I wouldn't say the upper echelon people, the leadership staff, but I would say mostly everyone else there either took a pay cut to work there or earning a very meager paycheck, but they're there because they felt like God called them to be there. And so they were willing to make a little bit less money to be in a place where, they can pray openly, it should be a more positive atmosphere, You shouldn't be dealing with a lot of the things that you might see in corporate America. But it should be, more of a Christian environment, since it's a church. So you're earning this meager paycheck, but you are working all these hours. Maybe you've been there for a while. And I will tell you, in the 4 years that I was there, almost 4 years, performance reviews of the staff were not a thing. I think maybe one department did them, but they didn't really come with anything, like, well, here's your yearly or your annual performance review, and you're getting, this kind of increase. The reviews just didn't happen. So basically, no news is good news. So if you weren't hearing from anyone, you weren't getting screamed and yelled at for not doing a good job, then the assumption was that you were doing a good job or you were doing your job. So there was no, positive feedback or affirmations. It was just no news is good news kind of thing. So you earn this meager paycheck, and then, you need a pay increase. So you are almost made to ask for an increase because you surely aren't getting a review or anyone offering to just give you an increase for your hard work. And there would be times where you're going to be made to feel guilty for even asking for an increase, regardless of how hard you work or how many hours that you put in, or the fact that maybe there's literally no one else that can do the job that you're doing. But you go and your hands are tied. You need to make more money for your family, or you're getting other, job offers, and you know that in your field you are severely underpaid. So in these situations, if these conversations and meetings happen, then I'm getting a phone call or an email saying, can you pull the giving report for the staff member? And based on that giving report, would be then a decision made on whether this person was going to get a pay increase, how much the increase was going to be. And in the normal world, this would never be a thing. If you're working in corporate America, no one's calling, your church or the places that you choose to give to and asking how much money you're giving to them before they decide to give you an increase. They base it specifically on your job performance. And, sometimes it's longevity at the job, but mainly it is going to always be based on your job performance and a real matrix on whether you are successful in your position or if there's room for improvement in areas. And so people were in a position where they knew that these conversations may happen if they were to go and ask for an increase, but they did know that at some point, if they work the church schedule or they attend a church there, then everything that they did and said was under a microscope, including how much money they did or did not give, and whether that was acceptable to World Harvest Church or was not. So from there, like I said, there's kind of a couple of areas that I wanted to discuss when we talk about buying your blessing. So this season right now at World Harvest Church is called Res Seed or Resurrection Seed. And I'm going to read directly from the Rod Parsley website what Res Seed is to him or World Harvest Church, because it certainly is not biblical. So it says, experience resurrection miracles in this powerfully prophetic season. 39 years ago, God instructed Pastor Parsley to direct the faith of his people at Easter to honor the way he gave his best for us on the cross by sowing their best resurrection seed offering. And each year we see resurrection miracles poured out as a result. But it all begins with your best seed sown in faith to honor the Lord Jesus Christ, the ultimate resurrection seed. And then there's something you can click on that says claim your harvest. So what would happen during this time, and I'm sure it's either happening this week that we're in, or it happened last week, is that not only would you have the secret meetings about your offering and your tithing, but then there would be all staff meeting where everyone would come in the sanctuary. It would be felt like it was a mandatory meeting, but definitely no verbiage used that made it mandatory, because if it's mandatory, you got to pay people for their time. So these meetings would happen in the sanctuary, and people would be told that what was defined by World Harvest Church as their best seed was at least 1 week's salary. And this wasn't just applying to the staff members there, but also the work study staff. And there was one particular situation that stands out to me because it bothered me so much when it happened that I even called some of these students into my office after the fact. So we were in the sanctuary. Was talking about, what's your best seed? It's 1 week's salary, or it's this dollar amount. And the director of recruitment for the college said, me and my staff are going to give $1,000 and each. Okay. So these work study students, before I go into that a little bit deeper, they're going to college at Valor, also, World Harvest Bible College, but it's Valor Christian College. They're going to school there. And they're making $10 an hour as a work study student. Everybody makes $10 an hour, no matter what job you do. But 80% of their paycheck was going back into the ministry to pay off their student loan debt. Work study students would earn this $10 an hour, and then 80% of that was going back into the ministry or Valor to pay off their student loan debt. And so 20% of their very meager $10 an hour they were getting. So, for a 2-week time frame, your paycheck might be $20, $40. And these are college students, so I'm sure they don't have a ton of bills, but they have some bills. And so very meager. And so some of these students are, when this was said, me and my staff are each giving $1,000, the look on their face was like, what? I didn't agree, to this, but they don't dare say that because there's too many people around, and you don't want to risk being rebuked in front of everyone or privately. So after that meeting, I called a couple of them into my office and said, hey, look, I know that what was said about you needing to give $1,000, but if you don't feel led to do that, or you can't do that, then don't do it. Like, you're not required to do that. And although I'm saying it, they do feel required because the person that they're working with day in and day out is not only committing themselves, but their staff to doing something. And of course, they do not want to face the wrath of being screamed at and yelled at, and what they like to call rebuking. So I believe that, most of them went went forth and continued to give that $1,000 that they couldn't afford. But that's the other thing. So in these meetings, if you could not, if you felt led, or you felt like you had, to give this money, you felt manipulated, you felt pressured, you felt bullied into giving this money, if you couldn't do it all at one time, then there would be payroll deduction forms that were in these meetings that you could split, whatever you decided to give, you could split it over a certain number of paychecks. And those would get sent into the payroll department. And so you could then give that way. And I say all that to say that the Bible says the Lord loves a cheerful giver, not somebody that is forced to give, not somebody that is being, bullied into giving, not somebody that is being called into meetings and rebuked because they feel like they're not giving enough. And these are, just one of many things that the staff members have to go through, and I'm sure are still going through, unfortunately. And they feel like there's no way out, or they don't have a voice, or how can they say no? Or, maybe I am wrong, if I don't do this. And so there's a tremendous amount of pressure to do things that maybe they otherwise would not be doing. And then lastly, the thing that I wanted to touch on was prayer cloth season. So there's going to be a couple of clips that we show just to give you an idea of what prayer cloth season is and what it means. But prayer cloth is a time of year where there are these pieces of cloth that are, they say that they have been prayed over, that, the anointing is on these cloths, and that if you send in your prayer request with at least $50, that you're going to get one of these anointed prayer cloths that you can pray with, and that if you need them for a sick family member, you can, give this to them, and they're going to be blessed by it, and they're going to be healed by it, and there's going to be all of these miracles. And when you see one of these clips, you're going to see an altar or stage filled with prayer requests, or what they would like for you to believe are all prayer requests. But they're not. Because of my position as the HR director, I was kind of all over the ministry, and the ministry does have a warehouse. And so I would be over there, very frequently during my time there. And there were these stacks, of envelopes. And I'm, asking questions, what are those, and, oh, that's for the stage during prayer cloth season. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Well, they put these on the stage and they put a cross over it, but they say that they're filled with prayer requests. And so I grabbed one of the stacks, and they look kind of something like this. Okay. So there's like, I counted it, I don't know, like 175 to 200 envelopes. Okay. And I started, sifting through them, and I noticed that either every envelope had the exact same name on it, or the envelopes were blank. There's nothing inside of the envelopes. So you look at the broadcasts of, there's all of these needs. There's all of these prayer requests that are being sent in. There's, all of these prayer claws that are being sent out to give people a miracle, and it's based on lies. I would venture to say there is not a single prayer request in one of those envelopes. And the thing is that they do get prayer requests. I mean, they may not fill up a stage, but they probably would fill up a pretty big table. I don't know that there's a lot of great marketing value off of a table of prayer requests instead of a stage full of prayer requests. But there are people that are writing in and calling in for prayer. But this is not what is being pictured online. It's not being shown on the broadcasts. It's fake. And not only are the envelopes empty, but these prayer claws that are supposed to be prayed over and anointed and prayed over by the people that you're seeing on TV, those prayer claws also never see that stage. They are shipped to the warehouse. They stay in the warehouse. They are mailed out. And I believe that the great ladies and young men that work in that warehouse, I believe that they pray over those prayer calls, but it is not, what is being presented is not what is factual. And to me, it's, if you're basing it on lies, what is the purpose other than monetary value? You are, conning people into believing that, you got a million prayer requests up there. I mean, I don't really know how many it is, but if you look at a stack of, 200 envelopes, you would only need 100 stacks. And clearly from that clip, there is a lot more than that. And it's just, to me, it's just disgusting. I believe that the people that are writing in and that are believing in their miracles, I believe their heart's in the right place. But what's the cost of that? You're paying for something that you're not getting. You are sending in money for something that is based on a complete fabrication. And again, the ministry is getting very rich off of the backs of other people and off of very trusting people that want to believe that if they do, if they send in their request and they send in their best love gift, that they're going to get their miracle. And what happens if you don't get your miracle? Are you blaming yourself? Should you have done more? Should you have prayed harder? Should you have been a better Christian? How is God viewing you? And so it lends hand to a lot of different conversations that come out of swindling people and conning people, for goodness sakes. And I say that to say, because it's not just the staff members that work at World Harvest that are being subjected to some bad behavior, but it's also the people that are watching and believing. And lastly, I want to talk about in regards to this, before we look at a Bible verse or two. Look at, or talk about, I should say, marketing meetings that are had. So there's the company that World Harvest hires to come in, and basically they have, 10 to 15 hour all day meetings. And what the meetings are for is they're looking at all of the different marketing avenues, which ones are bringing in the most money. What are, if we're talking about online or TV publications, what kind of audience is watching, and how do we appeal to them to make sure that we use verbiage so that we can get the most money out of them. So the ministry wants to be a ministry when, they want people to give the appropriate tithe and offering, but then they're a business or a corporation when they need to make sure that they're hitting their numbers and that they're staying on budget to make the money that they need to make. So they have these marketing meetings, and they talk about how much money do they need to make, what kind of Bible verse can be found to utilize in this marketing campaign to get the money. And if we need, $300, do we ask for $1,000? So because most people are going to kind of fall in the middle there. And then also looking at the demographics of the TV stations of, okay, this station, you have this demographic, and this station has more of this demographic. So what kind of verbiage can we use to appeal to the biggest demographic of these channels and of the viewers, so that we can maximize our marketing campaign and maximize the amount of money that we're getting? And it's just very disheartening that we have gone from, allowing God to point us in the right direction of what He wants us to do and what His will is, rather than someone telling us or requiring us to do something. And then when you talk about the publications and the TV broadcasts, that we are literally sitting in rooms for hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how do we get the most out of these people. And it's not godly, it's not biblical, it's strictly for the almighty dollar. And you have a man that has a private plane that he can take whenever he wants, while others have to drive or figure out their own way of getting where they need to be. You're talking about someone that has Gucci and Louboutin and all of the Chanel and all of the very best brand names, and all of these items are kept at the church so they can be written off. And it's literally giving, it's taking from the poor and giving to the already rich. And if you are a high donor, best believe that there are going to be requirements of you as well. But I would say most of the staff members and the people that attend World Harvest Church are middle class or lower middle class, and they are being put in positions where they're being required or manipulated into giving things that they may not have. So one of the Bible verses that I wanted to read, as this is kind of this episode is kind of coming to an end, but again, we kind of talked about a lot of things here when it comes to, by your blessing. So the Bible verses here are Psalms 10. It's 2 through 18, so it's kind of long, but it says, "Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak, who are caught in the schemes he devises. He boasts about the cravings of his heart. He blesses the greedy and reviles the Lord. In his pride, the wicked man does not seek him. In all his thoughts, there is no room for God. His ways are always prosperous. Your laws are rejected by him. He sneers at all of his enemies. He says to himself, nothing will ever shake me. He swears no one will ever do me harm. His mouth is full of lies and threats. Trouble and evil are under his tongue. He lies in wait near the villages. From ambush, he murders the innocent. His eyes watch in secret for his victims. Like a lion in cover, he lies in wait. He lies in wait to catch the helpless. He catches the helpless and drags them off in his net. His victims are crushed. They collapse. They fall under his strength. He says to himself, God will never notice. He covers his face and never sees. Arise, Lord, lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the helpless. Why does the wicked man revile God? Why does he say to himself, he won't call me to account? But you, God, see the trouble of the afflicted. You consider their grief and take it in hand. The victims commit themselves to you. You are the helper of the fatherless. Break the arm of the wicked man. Call the evildoer to account for his wickedness that would not otherwise be found out. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. You, Lord, hear the desire of the afflicted. You encourage them and you listen to their cry, defending the fatherless and the oppressed, so that mere earthly mortals will never again strike terror. And like I always said, this podcast is to help the people that have worked or still work at World Harvest Church or at any place that, intimidation and fear are a constant, and people really have nowhere to go because it's the people at the top that are causing all the hurt and the harm and the pain. And I want you to know that that there are people that care. I hope that there are people that care at your current workplace. But you cannot be divided when it comes to these things. And even if you have to stand alone, it's important to take a stand, especially if you feel being led to do so. Because in this situation, there are so many people that are hurt and they're broken, and they don't know how they are going to make amends with themselves, make amends with God, because they have been mistreated and treated so badly, and also treated others badly a lot of the times, because they're carrying out orders from the leadership. And I want you to know that there are protections out there for you, but you also cannot be so fearful that you do not speak up and you do not find someone that you can trust to go and tell your story, so that help can be found for all of you. So I pray that that this is helping, that it continues to help people. And I hope those that are in the positions of leadership, especially at World Harvest Church, that maybe they would take a good hard look at themselves and say, I'm ashamed for how I behave. I'm ashamed for how I continue to behave, and publicly apologize and correct the behavior. And so that's my prayer, and I pray that all of you get some peace and some help from this podcast, because I know how much some of you have been through, and it's very sad, and it causes me pain that I didn't speak up when I worked there, and I hope that it helps now. So continue to keep me in prayer, please, as I will you. And keep liking, subscribing, sending me messages, and get ready for episode 4. Thanks. Have a good evening.